We're often told that to get respect, you've got to be the loudest person in the room, that power means taking up space, demanding attention, and making sure everyone knows just how important you are. But for the families who have quietly held influence for generations, the exact opposite is often true. They teach their children that real power is silent, that the ability to command a room without saying a word is the ultimate sign of earned respect. Today, we're exploring the mindset of the ultra-rich, looking at the daily habits and unspoken rules that can build an empire of influence through quiet confidence and discipline. These aren't just parenting tips, they are some of the principles that seem to help dynasties endure. Let's uncover 8 of the codes often associated with old money child-rearing. Section 1. Rule number 1. The armor of understatement. The first principle is that understatement is a form of armor. In a world obsessed with showing off success, the flashy logos, the staged vacation photos, the loud declarations of wealth, these families often teach their children a counterintuitive lesson. Real power doesn't need to advertise. To them, constant attention isn't a prize, it's a risk. Flaunting wealth is seen as a sign of insecurity, something that invites envy, scrutiny, and unnecessary complications. And this isn't just about choosing discreet clothing, it's a whole philosophy. Children are taught that true luxury is found in quality and craftsmanship, not in a brand name. An heir might be gifted a grandfather's vintage watch or a simple, beautifully made journal instead of the trendiest new gadget. The message is subtle but clear. Your identity isn't tied to what you own, but to the values you hold. Possessions are tools for a good life, not props for a performance. This way, wealth doesn't become a cheap substitute for character. This idea extends to how they speak and act. Children are often discouraged from discussing money, assets, or inheritance, especially with outsiders. This isn't about being secretive, it's a form of discipline. It teaches discretion and humility, stopping a child from tying their self-worth to their family's net worth. Bragging or name-dropping is considered vulgar because it suggests your own presence isn't enough. The goal is to build a deep-seated confidence that comes from within, one that doesn't need likes or applause to feel secure. This training is as much about emotional control as it is about social grace. By learning to understate their wealth, children also learn to manage their impulses. They're taught that dignity comes before desire. An entitled demand or a tantrum might be met not with negotiation, but with calm silence, teaching the lesson that emotional outbursts are a loss of power. The ideal they're taught to strive for is composure. It's why you're often less likely to see a member of an established family making a public scene. They've been conditioned to believe the most powerful person is usually the most composed. Section 2. Rule number 2. The habit of reciprocal goodwill. In the world of old money, manners aren't just about being polite. They're a strategic way to build and maintain lifelong networks. The second principle is a kind of ritual of reciprocity, a system of etiquette designed to make other people feel valued and respected. This isn't performative politeness, but rather the small, consistent gestures of goodwill that create a huge reserve of social capital. A classic example is the handwritten thank you note. In an age of quick texts and emails, the simple act of putting pen to paper sends a powerful message. It shows you value someone's time or generosity enough to invest your own. Children are often taught this from a very young age. After a birthday party or a dinner at a friend's house, the thank you note is a non-negotiable habit. It reinforces the idea that relationships are built on mutual acknowledgement and whispers class far more effectively than any expensive gift. This thinking weaves its way into every social interaction. Children are drilled in the art of making others comfortable. This includes simple but often forgotten habits, remembering and using people's names, holding a door, and letting others finish their thoughts without interrupting. They're taught to ask thoughtful questions and to actually listen to the answers, which shifts the focus away from themselves. It's a subtle form of influence. By making others feel important, you become someone they want to be around, trust, and help. It creates a cycle of goodwill that quietly opens doors. A key part of this is treating everyone with the same level of dignity regardless of their job or status. Children learn by watching their parents speak respectfully to service staff, drivers, and household employees, always using please and thank you. They're taught to look people in the eye and acknowledge their presence. While kindness is part of it, this behavior is also rooted in a practical understanding. Your character is best judged by how you treat people you don't need to impress. A reputation for being gracious is a priceless asset. Arrogance creates friction, but courtesy builds allies. Section 3. Rule 3. The stewardship mindset. For many old money families, wealth isn't a taboo, but it's also not a bottomless pit for personal spending. Instead, it's treated like a formal subject of education. The third principle is to instill the mindset of a steward, not an owner. From a young age, children are taught that they aren't the ultimate owners of the family fortune, but rather its temporary custodians, tasked with preserving and growing it for the next generation. This shift in perspective is a key reason why some family fortunes last for centuries. This financial education can start with simple, tangible lessons. A common example is giving a child 3 jars for their allowance, one for saving, one for spending, and one for giving. This immediately establishes a core philosophy. Wealth should grow, it should be enjoyed, and it should contribute to the world. As they get older, the lessons get more complex. A pre-teen might be asked to budget for a family outing, forcing them to make choices and justify costs. For instance, John D. Rockefeller famously had his children keep detailed ledgers of their spending. When they asked for more money, he'd review the ledger with them to analyze their habits. By the time they're teenagers, the training can become more formal. An allowance might follow a strict rule, like saving a third, giving a third, and spending a third, and any major purchase requires a real justification. They have to answer questions like, is this a quality item that will last? And what else could you do with this money? Some are asked to shadow their parents in meetings with financial advisors, or even given a small but significant sum of money to manage with strict rules, a portion to invest, a portion to donate, and a portion to spend freely, after which they must report back on their decisions. These aren't just exercises, they're hands-on lessons in capital management. The ultimate goal is to foster a long-term mindset. Children are surrounded by their family's history, hearing stories not just of success, but of their grandparents' resilience or their great-grandparents' entrepreneurial risks. This framing teaches them to think in decades, not fashion seasons. They learn to prioritize preserving assets like businesses, real estate, and investments over the fleeting pleasure of spending cash. This cultivates patience and discipline, allowing wealth to grow silently and steadily for generations to come. Section 4. Rule 4. The power of quiet confidence. While the modern world often mistakes loudness for leadership, the fourth principle of old money training is that quiet confidence is the real currency of influence. This isn't an arrogant, chest-thumping kind of confidence, but a deep internal security that makes people respect you without you ever having to ask for it. The training often starts with mastering one's own presence. Children are taught the art of being fully present. When someone is speaking, they listen, not just waiting for their turn to talk, but really hearing what's being said. They're taught to resist the nervous habit of constantly checking their phone, a small act that signals to others that they are the most important person in that moment. This focused attention is magnetic. It makes the person speaking feel valued, which in turn elevates the listener. In a world of endless distraction, the person who can control their own attention holds immense power. Physical composure is another piece of the puzzle. These children learn to move with a deliberate, unhurried grace. You won't see a lot of frantic gestures or loud, dramatic reactions. They're taught to keep their voice even and measured, to use pauses for effect, and to be comfortable in silence. There's a belief that talking too much signals insecurity, a need for validation. By choosing their words carefully and speaking thoughtfully instead of constantly, their words carry more weight. When they do speak, People listen because it's an event, not just more noise. Finally, they're taught to walk into any room as if they belong there. This isn't about being arrogant, it's about a quiet assumption of place. They learn to maintain good posture, make steady eye contact, and offer a firm handshake. They don't try to suck up to people they think are powerful, because that would signal they see themselves as less than. Instead, they engage everyone with the same polite curiosity. This effortless ease communicates a history of belonging in important rooms. It tells the world they have nothing to prove, and that's precisely what makes them so compelling. If you're finding these insights into generational wealth valuable, take a second to subscribe. We're dedicated to exploring the hidden strategies of the world's most influential families, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's get back to it with the fifth principle, which shapes a child's entire world.
Section 5. Rule number 5. The discipline of a structured life. Where some might see wealth as a ticket to a life of unstructured freedom, the old money philosophy often sees it as a tool to create a life of disciplined structure. The fifth principle is that a highly structured daily life is where character and resilience are built. In these households, spoiling a child is considered a huge failure, as it robs them of the skills they need to manage their life and legacy. The thinking is that entitlement grows where boundaries don't, and structure is the best antidote. The day might begin with consistent morning routines. Children are often expected to wake up at the same time, make their own beds, and join the family for breakfast. This isn't because there isn't staff to do it for them, it's to instill the value of self-reliance from day one. Screen time is often heavily restricted. Instead of waking up to a phone, mornings might be for conversation about current events, history, or family stories. This sets the tone for a day focused on engagement, not passive consumption. Education is framed as a core duty. Children are often placed in rigorous academic settings, sometimes including boarding schools, where they're intentionally pushed out of the family's protective bubble. This forces them to adapt, follow rules, and stand on their own 2 feet. Beyond school, their time is often structured around mastering difficult skills. Instead of chasing trends, they might be encouraged to learn a classical instrument, become fluent in another language, or excel in a demanding sport like rowing or equestrian. These pursuits teach resilience, because failure is just part of the process. Even free time can have a structure. Some families have quiet hours, where children are expected to read, write, or just think. This practice teaches them to be comfortable with their own thoughts, a stark contrast to our noisy world. They might learn to respect nature through activities like gardening or helping maintain part of the family property, reinforcing the theme of stewardship. These routines, repeated day after day, build a powerful internal sense of order and purpose. The structure isn't meant to be a punishment, it's the deliberate process of cultivating poised, disciplined children ready for a life of responsibility. Section 6. Rule number 6. The language of legacy. For a fortune to last, its heirs need to think in terms of generations. The sixth principle is to immerse children in the language of legacy. It's a way of framing their lives not as individual sprints, but as a single leg in a multi-generational relay race. The family's history and values aren't just in a dusty photo album, they're woven into the fabric of daily life. This often starts with storytelling. At the dinner table or on family walks, children hear stories about their ancestors. Crucially, these aren't just tales of success. They also include stories of hardship and failure, the great-grandfather who lost a fortune and the great-grandmother who rebuilt it, or the business that almost collapsed during a recession. These stories serve two purposes. First, they show that the family's wealth wasn't magic, it was earned through struggle. Second, they provide a blueprint for future challenges, teaching that setbacks are survivable. This creates a deep sense of identity, anchoring a child in something much bigger than themselves. Heirlooms are used as physical anchors to this legacy. When a child comes of age, they might receive a significant family heirloom instead of a flashy new car, a piece of jewelry, a set of books, or a desk used by 3 generations before them. These objects are filled with meaning. They're tangible links to the past and constant reminders of their duty to the future.
Some families even have formal ceremonies where the story behind an object is told as it's passed down, reinforcing the idea that they're inheriting a responsibility, not just an object. Family governance can also be part of this education. As they get older, children might be gradually included in family meetings about the family's mission, philanthropy, or investment philosophy. They might be given a seat on a junior board of the family foundation or asked for their opinion on a small matter. This is a deliberate strategy to make them feel like active contributors to the family's future, not just passive heirs. They learn the language of trusts and endowments, seeing them as tools to carry out the family's long-term vision. The core message is clear. Your life has a purpose beyond your own comfort. You are a link in a chain, and your job is not to be the one who breaks it.
Section 7. Rule 7. Mastery over clout. In an era defined by the hunt for online clout, followers, likes, and viral fame, old money families often steer their children toward a very different goal: the quiet satisfaction of mastery. The seventh principle is to prioritize developing difficult, real-world skills over chasing public attention. This philosophy is rooted in the belief that true self-worth comes from competence, not from the fickle approval of an audience. This starts by directing a child's energy toward things that require long-term commitment and offer no quick status payoff. Think of mastering a challenging instrument like the violin, which can take a decade, or dedicating oneself to a demanding sport like rowing, where success depends on teamwork and endurance, not individual showboating. Learning to speak multiple languages fluently is another common pursuit, a skill that requires sustained effort but opens up the world in a way a viral video never could. The choice of these activities is intentional. They are often complex and have no shortcuts. You can't hack your way to playing a Chopin nocturne or winning a regatta. This process teaches a profound lesson in delayed gratification. The child learns that the best rewards aren't the ones that come easy, but the ones earned through struggle. This builds a powerful internal confidence based on proven ability. A kid who knows they can command a complex instrument or push their body to its physical limits has a self-belief that can't be shaken by a low like count on a post. This focus on mastery also instills a deep appreciation for quality. A child who has spent years learning the nuances of classical music or woodworking develops a discerning eye. They learn to recognize excellence in all its forms, whether in a piece of furniture, a meal, or an idea. This refined taste naturally steers them away from the disposable, trend-driven culture. They learn to value things that last, a principle that applies to their skills and relationships as much as their possessions. Ultimately, the pursuit of mastery is character development. It teaches humility, discipline, and resilience. While some might encourage a child to become an influencer, this philosophy encourages them to become a craftsman, a musician, or a scholar. One path chases external validation, the other builds internal substance. These 8 principles, understatement, reciprocity, stewardship, quiet confidence, structure, legacy, mastery, and benevolence, aren't just individual tactics. When you look at them together, you see a cohesive philosophy designed to produce a certain kind of person, one who is disciplined, gracious, and quietly self-assured. What becomes clear is that this kind of training is less about wealth and more about character. It's a relentless focus on building the internal qualities that make external wealth last. While much of the world is chasing fleeting metrics of success, these families are often playing a much longer game. They're trying to build people who are equipped to lead, preserve, and contribute. The ultimate lesson here is that real power and respect aren't seized, they're earned. They are the natural result of a life lived with discipline, integrity, and a quiet commitment to values that go beyond money. They are commanded silently through the steady, undeniable presence of a well-formed character. And that is a form of wealth that's available to us all. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of old money. If these ideas of legacy, discipline, and quiet confidence resonate with you, please subscribe and share this video.
We believe this wisdom is timeless and worth exploring. Let us know in the comments which of these rules you found most powerful. Until next time, stay thoughtful.